to the Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel meeting. On behalf of the panel, I recognise the traditional custodians of the land, the Ku-ring-gai people, on whose land we purport to meet. Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel meetings and COVID-19, in line with social distancing requirements to limit the spread of KOD virus, has been holding meetings on Zoom, and that practice is continuing today in accordance with recommendations by the Planning Department. Any person appearing at a local planning panel meeting is advised that their voice and personal information, including name and addresses, will be recorded as part of the meeting and made publicly available on Council's website via live stream and on-demand access, except any part of the meeting, of course, that is held in closed session. Accordingly, you must ensure that your address to the panel is respectful and that you use appropriate language and refrain from making any defamatory statements or discriminatory comments. Ku-ring-gai Council does not accept any liability for statements, comments or actions taken by individuals during a meeting of Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel. People connecting to this meeting by conferencing technology are reminded that under the Local Government Act, the recording of meetings by a member of the public using any electronic recording device, including a mobile phone or video camera, is not permitted. Any person found recording without the permission of Council may be expelled from the meeting. Some points to note. On-demand viewing for each KLPP meeting will be available until the holding of the subsequent meeting. Recordings of KLPP meetings are copyright protected and cannot be reused or reproduced without approval of the Council. The first item on the agenda is the question of apologies. No apologies have been received from anybody. I will now introduce to you the members of the panel. First of all, I introduce myself as the chairman of the panel. I'm known as Angus Talbot. I have a background in the law, having practiced as both a solicitor and a barrister, and I was for 15 years a judge on the Land and Environment Court, and I have been chairman of the panel at the Waverley Council, the Inner West Council, and of course Ku-ring-gai. I will ask the other members of the panel to introduce themselves and give you a brief outline of their background, starting first of all with the community representative, Suzanne Jolly. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Angus, Mr. Chair. Suzanne Jolly, I'm the community representative for Ku-ring-gai Council. I've been a resident within the Ku-ring-gai area now for, I think it's near on 12 years, so in total. But yes, have an environmental planning background as well. So I'm keen to hear everyone today.
Thank you. The expert planning panel member, Sandra Robinson. Sandra, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sandra Robinson. I'm a consultant town planner with about 30 years experience. I'm on the Ku-ring-gai panel, have been since it started, and also a number of other panels throughout Sydney.
Thank you. And the other member of the panel is an expert as well, Greg Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, my name's Greg Flynn. I'm a registered planner. I've worked for over 35 years working in the development in New South Wales. I've worked at state government, local government, and as a private consultant. I'm a member of the Hunter Central Coast Joint Regional Planning Panel. I sit on a number of other local panels, including Ku-ring-gai. Thank you.
Thank you. There have been no declarations of interest by any panel member, and there have been no staff declarations from any panel member.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
I would like to bring to your attention that the petition that was brought to the ordinary meeting of council on Tuesday, the 26th of April, has been acknowledged and considered. And that's in relation to the single matter that's dealing with the public interest today in a public meeting in relation to the development on Bobbin Head Road at North Turramurra. Speakers have 3 minutes to speak. A chime will be heard at the conclusion of the time, and you are asked to respect that, particularly having regard to the number of speakers that are listed to address the meeting. Normally, speakers would be heard in order of the objectors, followed by any legal representatives and then the applicant. However, today I intend to make some modification to that, having regard to the receipt of a letter dated the 12th of May 2022 from solicitors Mills Oakley, representing the applicant, who indicate that they act for the Northern Suburbs Football Association, the applicant in this in the first matter, and that the development application has been lodged on behalf of their client. So that the first matter that they're referring to is the proposal to construct a new grandstand with cafe, change rooms, offices, treatment rooms, corporate and media facilities at the existing sports ground at 361 A Bobbin Head Road. The letter notes that the assessment report recommends that the DA be refused for the following 3 reasons. 1, an updated traffic report. 2, an updated acoustic report. And 3, a site analysis plan have not been provided and are required. The purpose of the letter is to request the panel defer considering the DA until the next meeting on the basis that the updated traffic report has already been prepared and provided to council, and the other 2 documents have also now been provided. They request that the panel defer determination of the development application until the next meeting and provide an explanation of the reasons for so doing in the interest of fairness and public interest and so on, and providing explanation for the fact that the material was not provided earlier. What's the substance of the letter is that if the DA is refused, the client is likely to promptly resubmit the same DA with the additional reports, and that it would be a clear waste of council time and resources to reassess the DA again, simply with the traffic and acoustic report included, and in our view, their view, would create confusion in the community when the neighbours are notified of the new DA. Accordingly, the application is that the final consideration of the matter be deferred until those reports have been properly assessed. Normally, I would first of all call for the objectors to speak, as I mentioned a moment ago. Today, I intend to change that order. I propose to invite a representative of the applicant to speak solely in relation to the application made by the letter that I've referred to, so that when the objectors speak, they will not only be able to address the issues which they've elected to address in their acceptance of the invitation to speak, but they will also have an opportunity to give the panel their views on whether or not the application to defer the matter to the next meeting or whatever other time that it's deemed to be appropriate is a reasonable application or is not. So to that end, I note that there are 3 members of the applicant's team here. There's Andrew Martin, Joshua Moulders and Edward Ferguson. Would either of those persons please indicate whether they're prepared to address the meeting on this initial issue of whether or not the matter should be deferred. Now, I just should point out that the 3-minute rule will apply to everything that is occurring in relation to these submissions, just the same as they would have if this application had not been current. Now, which of those members, if any, of the applicant's team are prepared to address the panel in relation to the application to defer?
Mr. Chair, Andrew Martin, Town Planner on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And Andrew Martin, Town Planner on behalf of the applicant, to speak to you today just on this matter. You have a report before you which recommends refusal for lack of information. We would hope that the panel would agree with us that the report before you does cover all the other salient and relevant matters under section 4.15 of the Act. It does go through drainage, bushfire, lighting, and all sorts of other parameters that need to be considered. It will be apparent when reading the report that it is for lack of information. The delay, just to recap, the legal advice was because we needed to provide information that was reliable in terms of the parking. In order to do that, we needed the facility to be operational. The results of that traffic study prepared by Varga Planning, I think you have that before you, was included in the bundle, sets out the parameters looked at, the SIDRA analysis, traffic flows, parking, and I think you will find when you read that report, it does cover the issues raised by council. The letters do set out the council requests RFI and do respond to those. It says or comes to the conclusion that the proposal is acceptable and should be, they don't go to it, but not say be approved. So we would say in relation to traffic and parking, you'll be convinced once you have receipt of that report, or at least have the opportunity to review the report, that you could move to assess this application in a positive sense. The acoustics then flows from the traffic that arrives at a conclusion that the proposal is acceptable. So I believe on those two fundamental points, the site analysis has been provided as well. So the 3 points of outstanding nature, they relate specifically to the RFI from council. It's not something that has manifested from the report itself rather than the assessment process. And the delay is a genuine bona fide delay because we wanted to present to council and the community accurate information and data and responds to council's request. So in saying that, we all know where the site is. These applications do create interest. We say that would be good if the panel could agree with our submission that it could be deferred, and that would allow for the council staff to assess it, and it doesn't change the aspects of the development, but it does provide some information that responds to the council's RFI. So again, just to recap, we say that in that traffic report that there's ample parking on site. The council report itself does. It's not as if the council report.
I don't think we need to go into what the details are. The question is whether or not there should be a deferral.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would ask for that.
I think as I interposed, I heard the bell ring. So, Mr. Martin, you've had that opportunity, and thank you for that assistance.
Thank you.
Now, we'll move now to the objectors, and each of the objectors will be given the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes, and they'll also be able to address independently, as I mentioned, of the matters that they intended to raise as to whether or not the application would be deferred, so that when the panel adjourns in order to determine what should happen, firstly in relation to the deferral and secondly in relation to the application itself, if there's to be no deferral, it is aware of the public views in relation to that matter. Now, the first person that's listed to speak is Michelle Bell. Are you there, Bell?
No, Mr. Chair, that is Michelle Bell will not be speaking.
I see, thank you. Christine Drake. Do we have Christine Drake? I think you must be on mute.
You do.
Is Christine Drake here?
Oh, can you hear me?
I can now, thank you.
Hello. Thank you for listening. Firstly, I'd like to point out regarding the applicant's letter for a deferment that they have actually had 4 extensions in which to put in this information. The DA submission date was originally the 4th of December. Then it was changed to the 29th of February to give them more time to report an acoustic report, then the 4th of March, and then the 15th of April. So a deferment is should be completely out of the question at this stage. I'm president of NTAG, representing the majority of North Tarramara residents who are opposed to this development. Residents don't object to having 2 accessible additional toilets and change rooms at the existing clubhouse. Our objections are based on the contradictory and misleading information contained in the applicant's DA and other NSFA documentation as follows. The traffic report states that the facility is intended to provide a better facility for existing players, officials and spectators. On the same page, there's a contradictory statement which says NSFA's vision is to hold semi-professional and professional matches, which will need the use of the entire car park. That not only indicates intensification of use, but a monopoly of the site on at least 12 weekends a year. Their own website states, our strategy focuses on increasing the carrying capacity of each sports field, which relates to the amount of users on each field and the total hours of use. If you look at their application for a sports grant recently, they say the annual visits to the site are currently just over 78,000. However, the grandstand and facilities will increase the annual visits to the site to 110,000, over 110,000 people. That is a 46% increase in intensification of use of the site by the NSFA. In view of these contradictions, we believe that the DA is an unequivocally inaccurate representation of their plans. North Tarramara is also the highest bushfire risk area in Ku-ring-gai. The NSFA claim that they will cancel games on catastrophic fire days is largely irrelevant, as historical data has shown that the last 2 fires in North Tarramara occurred on days of 26 degrees. At a bushfire safety event council organised, the police advised us that it takes 6 hours to evacuate a single aged care facility. Within 500 metres of the NTRA, there are 10 aged care facilities. 742 of the residents in these will need medically assisted evacuation. Daily ambulances travel along Bobbin Head Road to these sites, and any ambulance delay has the potential to result in death. The fact is that only the grandstand itself complies with bushfire requirements. It completely excludes the 2,500 of us living at the northern end of the peninsula who have to evacuate along that single lane road. Given that Council has all the relevant information regarding to evacuation risk, including retrospective legislation by 2 planning ministers, Andrew Shorgie and Craig Knowles, to prevent intensification in North Tarramara, there is little doubt that a class action will be filed in the case of an ambulance or evacuation delay resulting in a death. The proposal presents an unacceptable risk and fails Council's own due diligence test. The intensification will result in significant adverse impact to the health, safety and public interest of residents and should be rejected in its entirety. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your assistance, Ms. Drake. Now, I'll just ask the panel members whether they have any questions for Christine Drake. Sandra Robinson?
No, thank you.
Suzanne Joly? Suzanne Joly?
No, I don't. That was very clear. Thank you.
And Greg Flynn?
No further questions. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to the next speaker, Maureen Owen. Maureen Owen here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sharing a computer with Christine.
Thank you. Good. Your 3 minutes is starting now, if that's convenient.
Thank you for reviewing the petition signed by 960 Ku-ring-gai residents who very strongly oppose the NSFA's DA for the NTRA. This significant response was achieved in just 21 days and highlights the strength of resident objections. 3,000 signatures could have been collected should we have had more time. The local community supports the provision of additional accessible change room and toilet facilities at the existing clubhouse. However, we very strongly reject the proposal to move NSFA headquarters to the site with its offices, boardroom, corporate box and huge NSFA signage. It cannot in any way be justified. The NTRA is used extensively by the local community, who feels a strong sense of ownership, and it is the only green space within 400 metres for residents at the northern end of Bobbin Head Road. This sense of community ownership is entirely justified, as the NTRA site was paid for in large part by a levy of 3.15% on all Ku-ring-gai residents' rates for 6 years. And residents agreed to pay this levy after council advised in writing that community facilities aimed at enhancing our use of the site would be installed. These include a park, children's playground, barbecue, picnic area, and walking trails to link with the national park. The fact is that not a single one of these facilities has been provided after 8 years, and that there is now a proposal to turn this site over to a lease by the NSFA. This further raises the justified scepticism of local residents that council fails to honour its commitments to its ratepayers. A grandstand and NSFA headquarters were never part of the original proposal. Having spoken to hundreds of residents during the collection of petition signatures, the key reasons residents oppose this development are firstly, access. The development presents a considerable risk for access and egress for residents and emergency vehicles using Bobbin Head Road every day, including the elderly and those with a disability or serious health condition. As a local resident, I know and live with the impact of increased traffic, an increase that the NSFA is denying. Secondly, residents live with the fact that North Turramurra is a high bushfire risk zone. For those wanting to or having to leave, rather than shelter in place, competing traffic on that single lane road is going to present life-threatening difficulties when a bushfire does occur. And I think we all know that one day a bushfire will occur at Bobbin Head. Thirdly, noise and light pollution regularly continues well after the NTRA's scheduled closing time. Despite many letters and phone calls, council has done nothing to address this. Residents know that this situation will only be exacerbated if the development goes ahead, as grandstand facilities will encourage players and spectators to stay longer at the site. The 960 signatories to the petition ask that this DA be refused outright and that the NTRA is retained as a community facility for all to enjoy, and that the facilities funded by residents that I mentioned above be actioned urgently. Thank you for the opportunity to address the panel.
Thank you for your assistance, Ms. Owen.
I would mention, I would like to refer to the issue of deferral. I completely oppose a deferral being granted to the NSFA. As has already been said by Christine Drake, they've had more than enough time to properly prepare. And as a professional body, I assume they did know how to properly prepare their application.
Thank you.
Could I also say, the first person you asked to speak was Michelle Bell. Michelle Bell did register to speak, but she was told that because she hadn't put in a written submission, she wasn't allowed to, even though she had done an oral submission to the public forum. So she would have been here today and she was very keen to speak, and she was prevented from doing so, even though it is not clear on the council website that you have to have a written submission in order to be able to speak.
Can I just interrupt you on that point? That was referred to me and I agreed to allow her to speak.
Ah, well, she was told.
Anyway, thank you for your assistance, Ms. Owen. I'll just see if there are any questions that panel members want to put to you specifically. Sandra?
No, thank you.
Suzanne?
No questions for me.
Greg?
No further questions, thank you.
But thank you for your assistance, Ms. Owen, and all of those matters that you refer to will be taken into account.
Thank you.
Helen Logie.
Hello, I'm Helen
Hello.
Logie.
Yes, you have your 3 minutes now. If you're ready, Ms. Logie.
Hello, I'm a local resident. I live at 341 Bobbin Head Road. We're 500 metres from the North Turramurra recreation area. I've got two objections to this development. Firstly, on the issue of noise, our house faces north, as do most of the houses in Kadumba and also in Glengarry. We can quite clearly hear a single raised voice of a coach shouting instructions to players across the valley. And this noise can also be heard in St Ives Chase across the way. That's a kilometre away. I don't think what 300 shouting spectators would sound like to local residents. I agree with the two previous speakers that this development represents an increase in use. The stadium is supposed to hold 300 spectators. Well, presently we don't have 300 spectators on site. So our objections are to noise. We very strongly object to a PA system. Why would you want a PA system for the current level of use? That is not clear. Likewise, an office, we strongly object to increased traffic on this road. My second objection is as a cyclist up and down Bobbin Head Road. I use that road very frequently up and down to the park, as do many of the local residents. On a Saturday morning, the World and his wife comes here from all over the northern suburbs to cycle, play golf, to play football, to take their boats down to Bobbin Head. It's an extremely busy place at the weekends. The parking is not adequate, and so it would mean double parking all the way down Bobbin Head Road with cyclists. And yes, we just object to the increase in use and the noise on this site.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got a question. I take it that the noise of people attending this site, generally speaking, in relation to the conduct of sport and what follows from that, is not your objection. It's to the amplified. It's to the amplified sound.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yes, I understood you correctly then.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions, members of the panel? Sandra, Suzanne, Greg?
No further questions.
Yes. Thank you for your assistance, Sluggy, and those submissions will obviously be taken into account by the panel. The next person who's listed to speak is Stephanie Owen.
Hello, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Owen, please.
Thank you. And
your 3 minutes is on.
Okay. I'm also not related to Ms. Maureen Owen. I am, my family and I live at 1 Deodara Gardens, North Turramurra, which as the road, travel by road, it's 650 metres away from the North Turramurra recreation area. As the crow flies, approximately 500 metres. And I object, like my fellow residents, to the extension or the deferment of this proposal, because it does not appear that a revised proposal would address the light and noise pollution. It may address the level of traffic, we will see. As a local resident, my family and I have moved into the area because of the leafy surrounds, the abundance of wildlife, wild birds, including nocturnal birds, and the quiet nature, especially after dark. Living just off Bobbin Head Road, we're realistic as to the daily traffic that traverses Bobbin Head Road. But historically, until the recreation area opened, at night it was extremely quiet. Since then, in recent times, we can hear every whistle. We can hear kicking of actual balls, the thud that comes from the balls. We can hear spectators yelling, players yelling, coaches shouting instructions. And this is from just standing in our backyard. and occasionally even within the house. So, you know, it has created disruption to nocturnal birds that, you know, we used to hear crickets, we used to hear owls that are in the area late at night. On a clear night, I'm sure, as I've gone on walks around the neighborhood, we could hear the noise from the playing itself across quite a fair bit of the suburb as I go for local walks in the evening. Traffic, of course, is related to the noise, and an increase in traffic will just increase the noise quite separately from the parking. And I actually recorded a video of me standing in my backyard one evening on a Saturday night around 8 o'clock, just the noise that we can hear just from our own backyard. I don't know if it will travel over Zoom, but if I may, it's less than 30 seconds, and I'll try and share the screen and see if I can share that video. Okay. Are you able to hear?
You can see it, can't hear a thing.
I'll try that another. Well, the fact is I'm standing in the backyard, and unfortunately over Zoom, it's not as easy to share such recordings. I would be willing to mail this recording should councillors and panel members be interested. If I were there in person, it would be quite audible. I used the sound meter application another night, actually just recent Saturday night, it was over 70 decibels, standing in my backyard.
Thank you. I take it the noise you're talking about is people's voices, is it?
Correct, and every thud that you hear when somebody kicks a ball, whistle from coaches and spectators or players cheering.
I see.
All of it.
All right, thank you. I know the nature of the noise then. Thank you. Any panel member wish to put any questions to Ms. Owen? There you are. Thank you for your help, Ms. Owen, and we'll certainly be taking all of that into account. The next person listed to speak is Andrew Minto on behalf of NTAG, North Turramurra Action Group, presumably that stands for. Thank you. Are you there, Mr. Minto?
I am, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. Your 3 minutes starting now. Thank you very much.
Chair and panel members, Andrew Minto. I'm a consultant town planner, and as identified, I've been engaged by the North Turramurra Action Group. I prepared a detailed submission against the proposed development, and it's asked that you have, if you have not read this submission, that you please do so as part of your consideration of this matter. Panel, whilst we are obviously supportive of the recommendation for refusal, we are concerned regarding a number of aspects of the assessment report and the recommendation. I agree that the recommendation reads more like a request for information than an all-encompassing list of reasons for refusal. We remain of the view, as set out in our submission to the Council, that the issues associated with this application are far broader than those identified. We are also concerned that despite assurances in the assessment report, that all of the issues identified in our submission have not been thoroughly considered and discussed within the report. The issue of intensification in the use of the site is clearly articulated in the application, and its relationship to strategic planning decisions of the Council and the state government over the last 15 to 20 years, together with the requirements of the Rural Fire Service, have not been discussed. Whilst it is true that the RFS has issued general terms of approval for the site, the report neglects to identify that the advice was issued with the caveat that the proposal will not increase the current capacity and result in adverse traffic conditions. I fail to see how a proposal which seeks to transition the use of the site from a community sporting venue to the home of football of a New South Wales Premier League side would not result in an increase in the capacity of the site. The financial outlay for such a development could not be justified unless it could be demonstrated there was going to be an intensification in the use of the site. It's requested that as part of any reassessment of the development, that input be sought from Council's Strategic Planning Department as to the relationship of such a proposal with strategic planning decisions made in relation to the North Turramurra precinct over the last 15 to 20 years. Panel, it is therefore requested that the application is refused. However, it is our view that the reasons for refusal should be more encompassing and better reflect the issues associated with this proposal. And if it is to be deferred, that any new council assessment report address the issues that I've raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your assistance, Mr. Martin. Mr. Minto, I'm sorry. And I'll just check whether any panel member wishes to
No, thank you.
join with Mr. Martin. Mr.
No.
Flynn, yes. Sorry,
Yes.
sorry, Suzanne got in first. Yes.
No further questions.
No
Greg?
further question. Mr. Flynn has a question.
Yeah, now I've got a question, Mr. Minto. The council report suggests that the grandstand and offices would be a community facility and proposal is therefore authorised development. However, in your submission, I noted that you suggest that the National Premier League's operation of an office is considered to be inconsistent with the adopted plan of management. I just wondered if you could elaborate on that, please.
I'm not sure I made that comment, I'm sorry.
I read it in your submission.
No, what I said was, from memory, that the provision of a grandstand was inconsistent with the adopted plan of management for the site. I don't believe I raised any issue regarding permissibility.
No, I think you said the National Premier League's operation of an office is considered to be inconsistent with the adopted plan of management. I'm not talking about zoning. I'm talking about, anyway, that was, I read that in, I'm sure I read it, but if.
Yeah, I don't recall making that statement, no.
Okay,
Right.
no further questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your assistance, Mr. Minto. And of course, as I said with the others, all of that will be taken into account when the panel retires to consider the matter.
Thank you, Chair.
The next speaker is Rob Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd, I see you there. Can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honour. I am speaking in favour, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, that's correct. We're up to that. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. Chair, sorry, it's Sean Garland from the council. We do have a registered speaker, Ms. Claire Kierans, who has registered to speak and who registered in time. So I don't know what's happened to your list, but she's certainly registered to speak and she's online.
All right. Well, that's it's not on my list, but nevertheless, I'm happy to take your assurance that that's an oversight, Mr. Garland. And just could I have the particulars of the speaker? First name? Claire.
Kierans.
Kierans. I can see the name there on the.
That's correct.
List. And Ms. Kierans is a local resident, is that right?
Correct.
All right, okay, that's all I need to know at this stage. Happy to hear from you, Ms. Kierans. Are you there?
Thank you.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Angus, and thank you, planning panel, for letting me have the chance to speak today. I'm one of more than 1,000 local residents who've sent in formal submissions to strongly oppose this DA on the grounds that it's not in the best interests of the local community. I want to raise specific concerns today which relate to the plan of management and the Local Government Act, which stipulates and legislates for this. The Act stipulates that community land is required to be used and managed in accordance with the plan of management applying to that land, and that councils must consult with their community. The plan of management covering the NTRA clearly states it is to promote a recreation precinct that meets the needs of local sporting groups and the wider community and makes a positive contribution to the local environment. The local community agreed this plan with a specific documented agreement that the NTRA will provide multi-purpose recreational space for a broad range of community activities to benefit the wider local community. On this basis, as Maureen's already mentioned, local residents have been levied 3.15% on top of our rates over 6 years. Please note also that the plan of management defines NTRA as a recreational area, not a sports ground. This is significant. The NTRA master plan is completely at odds with the NSFA DA. The NSFA is not a local sporting group. It comprises members from 5 council areas. Only 15% of its members fall within the local area. The NTRA plan is clearly contravened if an out-of-area semi-professional soccer organisation is given a monopoly on its use, thus depriving the local community of its only green space still available for passive recreation. The Act also states Council has a legislated requirement to consult with their community. Council's own community participation plan states Council will engage regularly with its community on planning proposals. Council did not have regular and proper consultation with the local community regarding this DA. Council initially notified no more than 40 households. They did not notify nor consult with any of the 10 aged care facilities, retirement villages, and rehab hospital, which is within 500 metres of the NTRA and which will be impacted by any increase in traffic. They didn't consult with any multiple aged care providers who service the hundreds of older vulnerable residents in our immediate area. There was also no consultation with our local Indigenous community regarding the potential environmental impact. There have been 2 on-site meetings held with councillors. These were organised by residents, not council. Council has clearly not met the legislative requirements within the plan of management as regards proper and regular community consultation. If it were approved, this DA would be a serious contravention of the plan of management under this Local Government Act, plus a breach of trust between Ku-ring-gai Council and its local community, who have been paying for this recreational facility for our local residents under an apparent false apprehension. So I really thank you for listening and really ask you to take that into account, please.
Yes, thank you for that helpful information, Ms.
Thank you.
And I'll just check that there's no questions. There might be. Mr.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just would like to ask actually one of the council officers in response to Ms. Kieran's submission. Is that okay, or is it too early?
Or maybe that's what we'll do in the
yeah, I'll leave it till later.
The sessions meeting. Ms. Jolly?
No, that's very clear. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your assistance. And as I said, that will be certainly taken into account. Now, reverting to where I was, we were asking Mr. Rob Lloyd to come forward. I see Mr. Lloyd is there. Are you ready, Mr. Lloyd? Your 3 minutes can start now.
Before I do start, Mr. Talbot, could I am responding in favour, and I'm aware sort of from the NSFA that Andrew Martin is a planner who has a coordinated response, and the more coordinated sort of order of speaking would be for Andrew to go first so that he can address all of the main issues. So would it be possible for me to defer to him?
You're making a unique submission, aren't you, on your own account?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Oh, I prefer to hear that.
Okay, right. I'll so I'm a local parent and also a member of the NSFA. So I've coached young sports teams over a period of over 10 years, and my submission is in favour of this facility, very much that it's it will not lead to an intensification of the use. That already this facility is used as by the NSFA for its as its home of football, in inverted commas. The facility will do no more than have people sitting on a grass mound watching a game of football, sitting comfortably in a appropriate seating that's covered, and additionally there will be some noise attenuation that would come with that. The facility will enable people with a disability, and particularly females who are sort of the change room facilities are not appropriate there to be properly addressed. So from my perspective, that's all that I want to add is from a very large football community that operates within Ku-ring-gai Council. This is a facility that is strongly supported, and I think there have been significant support pulled together as part of a sort of letters of support to the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
Can I also say, just on the issue of the deferment?
Oh yes.
I am in favour of the deferment. The request for the traffic report was made as part of the last request for RFIs in November. The report was commissioned immediately. The report was required to be done when school was in operation, so could not be started until after the 26th of January. It was immediately done after the 26th of January, and by the time it was finalised, the window had closed. So the information that has been requested has been delivered in the most timely manner, and unfortunately it fell outside the window for it to be accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Sandra Robinson.
Look, I think on the assumption that we're going to hear from the applicant's planner, Mr. Martin, I think I'll save my question for him.
All right, thank you. Suzanne Jolly.
No, I'm okay for the moment. Thank you.
Good. Mr. Flynn.
No questions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lloyd. And those remarks will be taken into account. Andrew Martin.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Yes, there you are, Mr. Martin. This is your second go, but you get a three minutes again.
Thank you. So some of the points I'd just like to emphasise, there's been a number of points made by the neighbours and local residents. It's in 3 minutes I couldn't possibly cover everything, so taking some of those main points. In terms of our submissions and our application, it wasn't because we had a half-baked application. It was simply because we wanted to provide accurate information to the council and the community. And I think Mr. Lloyd set out that in terms of school, and there is, in the Varga submission, it actually states the reasoning why that had to be delayed, so we could have a proper catchment of the information. Secondly, in relation to the traffic, we say that on-site parking is adequate, and the SIDRA analysis that measures, it's independently done, and it measures traffic volumes and movements. That report via Varga traffic planning establishes that it's accurate and is acceptable. In terms of the use, the NSFA are basically at the site already. We're not increasing the open grassed areas, not removing any trees. It's simply to use the existing established viewing and sport and recreational area around the soccer fields for that purpose that they're already using at the moment. In terms of the other issues which were raised, in terms of the acoustic impacts, those impacts are existing at the site at present. So we're not asking to increase alter the nature of the use. The use remains as a sporting recreational field for use for football. I call it soccer. So in that respect, we have an acoustic report. You have not seen that, and which was built on the traffic report as well. So we say it complies when you have the opportunity to, and that's why we're asking for deferment. In relation to, I'm just checking my notes here. We're happy to accept conditions, and there's requirements in the acoustic report about the PA system that's covered in the acoustic report. We noted that people do come from over the place to cycle, to walk, to things like that. So at the end of the day, there is some expectation people will come from other areas to use this facility, but also to accommodate its own community as well. So as we heard, there's people that ride bikes or come for walks or all sorts of things that will attract that people to that specific area. In terms of the parking, in terms of the vehicle movements in and out of the site, the analysis by Varga also says there's only, I think it's one space for queuing in terms based on the SIDRA analysis. In terms of that, I guess the nature of the use is some of the questions that were raised as well. The council report does go into that the grandstand seating facility will support the current use of the site. There's also improvements to, amenities. It's not just a seating facility. There's accessibility, change rooms, and all sorts of other features that support the existing use of the site. In terms of light spill and so forth, those issues will be covered in their standard conditions of consent. I think it's AS 4288, the intrusive effects of light spill, that can all be covered by future conditions of consent. In relation to covered independent, yeah, I'll just go into my notes. Sorry, Mr. Chair, because I was trying to note down some of the. Yeah, so I think if we just wrap up.
I don't know whether I've missed the time, but it seems that I should have heard it.
Yeah, that's right. So in terms of
Kerry, has the time expired?
Yes, it has. It just went off, Mr. Chair.
Oh, good. Thank you. You better wind it up, Mr. Martin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess just in recap, we feel that the application should be deferred. You're not compelled to make that decision today, and we would like the opportunity to submit that information and have it assessed, and then the neighbours can make submission to that future recommendation to the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any questions from any member of the panel for Mr. Martin? I think Suzanne.
Yes.
Oh, Sandra,
please.
thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Martin, there's been obviously a different opinion between the applicant and the community in terms of the intensity of the use and whether or not it's staying the same. I'm interested to know if, and this is something that comes up a lot with school DAs, if you were to prepare a usage profile where you were to list all of the events that happen on the site, how often they happen, the population that attends the events, the hours of operation. If you were to do that for the existing use and the proposed use, would they be identical? Because you talked about it, there being no change to the use. So the use might not change, but are the events identical?
Well, I will. I'm still, yeah, okay. I will defer to Edward, who's from the association, but for some backup in terms of the events. Very similar, as I understand, in terms of the events. So we could actually, because
if you don't know, and there is someone here who does know the answer to that question, perhaps you should defer.
But yeah, the only point I wanted to make was the analysis that was done for the parking and so forth managed to, we're at around 75% capacity under the current arrangement. So there is capacity in the site embedded, but I think Edward, if you could answer that question in terms of the nature of the actual use intensification claim.
All right, I'm prepared for that to be deferred to Mr. Ferguson in due course. Any other question for Mr. Martin? Yes, Mr. Flynn.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just raised when you spoke earlier, Kerry, Andrew, talking about the issues and addressing the issues for refusal. When you look at recommendation C, and it talks about an amended traffic report, to look at the impact of the proposed in relation to emergency evacuation of the area. Have you addressed that? I didn't hear it mentioned. It's big. It's one of the big issues.
In terms of emergency evacuation, I'd have to go to the document. I do have it with me.
Yeah.
If we could hear from Mr. Ferguson, I can come back to you on that.
I think it's you're referring to part of the refusal, aren't you?
The
reasons for refusal in the report.
Yeah, on page 402, it says the traffic report also needs to consider the suitability of the road network and any additional impact of the proposal in relation to emergency evacuation of the area. I just didn't hear you mention it earlier.
No, I'm talking about it encapsulated in the traffic report. So that's why I just need to just double check, because I understand I don't want to say something if I'm not sure.
No, that's all right. It's just that I haven't seen any of that information. I'm just asking you.
Yeah, there was a bundle of documents. Have you had an opportunity to read the bundle of documents that came in?
No, I haven't seen any.
Came in this week?
No, it was on Thursday. It was sent on Friday.
No, obviously we haven't had an opportunity to look at that.
No, that's right.
All right, well, we'll move on from Mr. Martin and see if Mr. Ferguson ultimately deals with the issue raised by Mr. Flynn. But in the meantime, Joshua Mulders, are you there? No, Mr. Mulders?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I am here as a representative of Alchemy Architecture Director have been working with.
I don't see you at the moment. Oh, there you are. Oh, yes, you're not under your name. Alchemy Architecture. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mulders. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please proceed.
Yes, look, just I'm here as basically to support Andrew Martin, planner, and Enwood Ferguson, CEO of NSFA, with respect to any additional information that may be required if tabled by the panel. I don't have anything further to say at this point, and support the application being deferred. I think all of the points on the reasons why have been put forward. And I'll reiterate with the point that Andrew made earlier, which was with respect to the reason why the data could not be encapsulated in that time frame was because schools were still on holidays, and the normal games had not resumed at that time, so we couldn't capture the most efficient, effective data that the council was requesting for that component.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mulders. Any questions from panel members for Mr. Mulders? Because we'll move on to Mr. Ferguson, who is the actual applicant for development consent. You there, Mr. Ferguson?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yes, I see you. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. Yes, my name's Ed Ferguson. I'm a long-standing Ku-ring-gai resident, and I've played on the fields, played football since we moved here back in '98. So very much something from the heart. The Northern Suburbs Football Association are a non-for-profit community sporting group. We have 8,000 Ku-ring-gai members, and our local club, North Turramurra Football Club, was our founding member back in 1957. So our community relevance is extremely strong. And what we're proposing to do at the NTRA is enhance the local facility. It was gifted to us from council a number of years ago when they repositioned the golf holes. And NSFA do not seek to have exclusive use of the venue, and we never have done. We simply hire the sports fields. So there's 3 soccer fields that we hire on an hour basis, and that's all under the plan of management. So we're limited in the amount of hours that we can use the fields. We're also limited in the amount of people that can use the fields at a certain time. So I think that needs to be strongly taken into consideration, because any proposed change would have to be in line with council. And at the moment, we currently use the fields to the maximum that we're allowed to, which for the grass fields is 30 hours per week. And so therefore there does not intend to be any change to the sports field usage, which therefore shouldn't mean that there's a significant increase in the traffic or the parking and the people attending the ground. The NSFA has also sought the support of other local sporting groups in the region, because we do align to council and the state government in trying to achieve multi-sport and multi-purpose venues. And since 2017, when the idea first became kind of got floated, we've worked with hockey, cricket, netball, and a range of disability sports to ensure that what we are proposing will also be supported by them and utilised by them. This also led to a community room being implemented within the design, which you can see as a way of engaging further into the community. So again, this is not an exclusive use for Northern Suburbs football. This is for the whole community to use. We do not intend to have a lease over the sports fields, nor put a fence up or anything like that, which has been proposed. So that's completely misplaced. In terms of green space, we're not getting rid of any green space. I guess there's 2 mounds of dirt, and we plan on building on those sites to provide inclusive change rooms for our female participants and our disabled participants who at the moment are getting changed out in the open. There's also inadequate toilet facilities, which we plan on changing to really enhance the local area to make it a community sporting centre, not just a football home, and not exclusive. I don't think I need to talk any more about the traffic. Mr. Martin's covered that. And I think our other reports that we've provided from the various consultants for acoustics and light and whatnot all cover that more than I can do it justice.
Right. Well, I'll cross to questions then. First of all, Flynn.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ferguson, I just wanted to know who will be occupying the office identified as second stage works on the ground floor.
Yeah,
Seems
correct.
to be an individual office for about 17 people, so lunchroom and everything.
Yes, an office for 12 people. That's for the Northern Suburbs Football Association, and that's the organisation I represent. The organisation where the 8,000 players are members of, and that's been proposed because in the original Ku-ring-gai master plan there were administration facilities proposed when the original site master plan was put forward. Obviously that never eventuated. We plan on picking that up and continuing it, and we only have 12 staff, and we operate 9 to 5 as usual.
Yeah, that administration role is generally usually for the whole facility and all the open space, everything. So where are you currently located? Where's your association currently housed? Somewhere else?
Yeah, correct. We have a lease in Pymble, so we're just.
Yeah, so you're in a commercial area at the moment in Pymble.
Correct.
Yeah. So Mr. Martin said that you're already on the site, so that means you've already got a lease and you're actually running games from there, but you're doing it remotely from managing it from Pymble. Is that right? Correct.
Yeah, council hire us the grounds on an hour-to-hour basis.
Yeah, so you're just currently leasing the grounds under a lease in accordance with the plan of management.
Correct. Yeah.
So what are your hours proposal if in your office? Your hours of operation, will that be a 5-day week or a 7-day a week occupation?
Yeah, the office is 5 days a week, regular 9 to 5, and we've working with the other sports. We've offered up that boardroom that you'd see in the design as being a kind of a multi-purpose thing that people can hire, and that's what some of the other sports were interested to explore.
You've got that. And are you responsible for overseeing activities on other sites, like not just this oval? Do you coordinate other football and so forth around North Sydney, North Shore?
Yeah, correct. My association spans 5 councils. Ku-ring-gai has 50% of the fields, 50% of our members, and we work. So yeah, we have 130 separate fields. Some are obviously kids fields, so they're tiny. Others are full-size fields, but NTRA is probably the newest one.
You oversee 130 fields across 5 local government areas.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, look, I'm just trying to determine what the scale it is and whether it needs to be there and that sort, and whether it's in fact in accordance with the plan of management.
Yeah, sure. And we did seek that information from council staff prior to going ahead with it. And obviously the original administration buildings were the intended use of football and other sports. And similar on that site, the golf club is run as a commercial operation. We're not a commercial, we're a non-for-profit. So therefore, I believe we have the community interest at heart.
But you'd be paying commercial rent where you are at the moment, wouldn't you?
Yes, correct.
And you'll be paying commercial rent to the council, I presume, by a rental agreement.
But that would be, I'd have to defer that to the council.
Yeah, but it's not my interest. It's not, that's between you and the lease. But yeah, Mr. Chair, I've got just a question to put to the planning officer if I could.
Well, we'll do that in meeting. We'll do that. We'll have to retire and consider all of this.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson.
Suzanne Jolly.
I think you've answered the question around intensification, but there was mention of a separate sporting grant that was submitted, which did talk about intensification. Can you just clarify that for me, please?
So yeah, we did apply for a sporting grant, obviously, to try and fund these facilities. In terms of the intensification documentation, I'd have to see it. I'm not sure where the numbers have come from there. But the grant that we went towards was building more female-friendly facilities, and that's obviously built within what we're trying to do. The only, I guess, to comment on the only additional event that we would like to start running at a field in Ku-ring-gai, but obviously in North Turramurra is a disability gala day, which we're the only association that can't deliver it at the moment. There's 16 associations in Sydney. We don't have the amenities at the current time, hence why we have wanted those additional amenities, which I know the community is supportive of. But that's the major event that we speak about in the in our submission.
Can you give some context around how big that event would be, like scale-wise at all?
Yeah, it's probably around 150 kids, and so they're all ranges of abilities, and essentially it goes on almost like a road trip. Each week it's somewhere different in Sydney. Yeah, so that's kind of all I can give.
All right, thank you very much.
Sandra Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ferguson, my question that I directed to Mr. Martin earlier on about that usage profile, and thank you for confirming 30 hours existing, 30 hours into the future. But I'm just interested in understanding the content of what happens in those 30 hours. So the number of people that attend events. 30 hours doesn't really tell the whole story. I'm just trying to understand whether the usage profile of existing and future is the same, not just the number of hours.
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess to take you on a bit of a week journey, if I can. So we have primary booking of the soccer fields. So the 3 soccer fields between April and September. We have priority booking of the synthetic soccer field all year round, just because we book it on behalf of our clubs to kind of ease the load on the booking officer at council. In the summertime, cricket use the grass field, so I can't really speak on behalf of them. But during the winter season, from a Monday to Friday, football would use the facility from around 4:30 to 9:30, depending on the evening. In terms of the grass fields, I'd have to refer to council or get them, but we do have a limit of 40 people per grass field. So that's what they stipulate, and that's
sorry to cut you off, but just to save time, it's the bigger events. I think is there going to be in that 30 hours? Are there going to be more big events? Because that seems to be what the community is fearful of. Does the stadium give you capacity to have bigger events? Not just the 30 hours, not just that it's soccer or cricket, but the participants, but also spectators.
Yeah, sure. No, in our opinion, we don't believe it does. We currently do have a representative side that play in the New South Wales State League, but we've had them since 2002. So that's not changing. Our women are in the top division, our men are in the second division. Our local players, who must be 75% represented from NSFA, have been there since 2002. So we don't intend to be any increased intensification of the events, because on a Saturday or Sunday, it's either it's just football games. I guess we can't really use the field much more. There's only 3 soccer fields and we can only get so many games on there.
Okay, thank you.
That answers.
Bill, so that completes the number of people who have been registered to speak. As I indicated earlier and several times during the discussion, the panel will now retire and go into closed session to take into account the material that's been put to us today, in particular, having already been given a substantial amount of material by the assessment reports provided, and both decisions, that is the question of the deferment, and secondly, if that's not to be deferred, whether or not the application should be granted, will be considered. And the panel would like to thank the members of the public and the people associated with the applicant who have come here today to give us a better insight into what the issues are and have an understanding of what the expectations will be for the future. And we do appreciate that input and that help, and it will all be taken into account, I can assure you. So the meeting now is adjourned. to the closed session, and the outcome of that meeting will be published on the council's website, aiming to have it there within the next 48 hours. Thank you for your attendance. The meeting is closed.